Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Altered State, the podcast. This episode truly encompasses everything that the Altered State trilogy stands for, which is life, health, and recovery. And in doing that, I'd like to introduce a man who is literally near and dear to my heart. I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing this individual for 20 years. We've shared a lot of laughs. We've also shared some darkness, right? We both share the same disease. But I want to introduce everyone to Mike Chernow. If you don't know him, you should. He is a Renaissance man. I often think of Mike as like the Swiss Army knife, literally an entrepreneur, somebody who is deeply anchored to his recovery, understands food, understands motivation, understands exercise. And with that, there's a slew of things that Mike has done throughout his career. He's the founder of Seymour's Restaurant, which, has 6 locations in New York City. The co-founder of one of my favorite places in New York City, which is the Meatball Shop, which had 8, or I think still has 8 locations. He's also co-founded a health beverage, which I'm excited to hear more about, which is, it goes by the name of Well. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they're adding more SKUs in 2020, which is a fantastic opportunity for those looking for that as part of their recovery and part of their health regimen. But for me, I think what Mike embodies, which is one of the reasons why I align to him at such a deep level, is the fact that he's a fantastic husband, fantastic father, is a fantastic humanitarian. So I could not be more proud to welcome Mike Chernow to another episode of Altered State. And so, dude, what is up?
My brother, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm honored to be here. I love you, man. We've known each other for, like you said, 20 years. And, I told you this a couple weeks ago when we were connecting, but you've always been a guy that I've looked up to. Whether you know that or not. You just have. You've always been a guy that I always said, we both partied together. We both had some dark days together. But somehow, some way, Tony Munoz always had a smile on his face, whether he was going through the shit or not, and always looked really, really good. You're just one of those guys that just stayed in great shape and knew how to do it. And that was something that I was not able to do when I was out there using alcohol and doing drugs. Like I didn't know. I wanted to desperately learn how to get in shape and feed my body that way, but I just didn't know how to. So you're just a guy that I have always really aspired to and loved. And your brother too, man. Your brother's close to me, and you guys both have just been sort of monuments in my life.
Thank you, Mikey. Well, listen, the love runs deep, my man. I think it's important. Your story is deep and profound. You are a New York City boy. You have that edge. I think you carry that edge in everything you do. I'd like for you to kind of introduce us to a little bit of, your upbringing, growing up in New York. What are some of the things that you still carry with you as a result of being that native New Yorker?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd like to kind of just start off by saying a few things that I've been thinking a lot about recently, specifically in this lockdown, phase that is unprecedented, that none of us could have ever imagined happening, but it's happening, right? I believe in my heart of hearts that as human beings, we are all here for one purpose, and that is to love and be loved. I believe that in my core. And we are motivated by 2 things: fear and love. And I know that if we practice one of them, the other will begin to disappear. And I say that, with real sort of like guttural conviction. I believe that because I know that I have done both, right? I've practiced the fear game, and luckily for the better part of the last, 16 years, I've been practicing this love game. And the fear has really, not that it doesn't exist in my life, but it certainly does. But I because I've been practicing love so much, and that doesn't mean that I'm always just loving others. That means that I've been practicing self-love a lot. The fear becomes far less penetrable in my periphery, in my ethos. So start off by saying that because I believe that that's very important, and I think that people have to sort of understand that we are here for one single purpose, and that is to love and be loved. And most of the decisions that we make are either, are in fear of not being loved enough, or because we love so much. So I'm a New York City kid. I was born and raised in New York City. I've always been an escapist kind of guy. I've always wanted to move and make and do. I've always thought that way. I've always thought about like, what can I do? How can I make? How can I move? Very uncomfortable staying in one place for a long period of time. And so, I grew up in a pretty shitty situation. I think my parents really did do the best they could. I don't blame any of my, my ism on them. I do believe I was born with a disease that tells me I'm not good enough. And I think that's at the core what, alcoholism is. It's a byproduct of this mental illness that we have, that tells us we're not good enough. And that shit sucks. But there is a solution, and I'll, walk you through my journey to sort of finding that solution. But so I sort of grew up in this household where my father was very abusive, very aggressive, and I wanted out as early as I can remember. And I was escaping in many different ways. As a very young kid, I was escaping literally very young. Sexually, I was escaping in sugar addiction. I remember as early as I can, my parents, we had a small one-bedroom apartment, and they had a Murphy bed in the dining room. And the dining room was their bedroom, essentially. And when the Murphy bed was down, the only way to get into the kitchen was to crawl under their bed. And so when I was like 3-4 years old, I remember very vividly like crawling under their bed as many nights as I can get away with it, sneaking into the kitchen and like sucking the orange juice out of the container as quickly as and as fast as I could, and finding reprieve in that, and so I just sort of like ended up in some pretty shitty situations because I wanted to escape and I didn't want to be at home. But, it led me to look for love from men because my father was so, he was just, he rest in peace, but he just didn't know how to love. He was probably not meant to be a father. I don't blame him for that. But his father wasn't the greatest father. So, I found myself like sort of looking for, trying to, I was naturally athletic, and so I always ended up in a sports program, and then trying to find that sort of like fatherly love in my sports coaches, and some of them took advantage of me, unfortunately. And I was sexually molested as a kid, never to like a really bad place, or at least I don't recall it ever getting to like rape, but I was certainly sexually molested by some of my sports coaches who are now actually in prison for doing it. But that didn't really become part of my like conscious story until I got sober. But I'm sure that fucked me up, somehow, some way sexually. And then like, I just sort of moved through life until I was about 12 years old, like not really understanding who I was or what I wanted. But I knew that like I wanted out of my parents' house because I just didn't like being at home. So I tried to kill myself when I was 12. Got put into Pain Whitney mental institution. They kept me there for a few days to evaluate me. I was able to come home after that. And then I very quickly found drugs and alcohol. And that was how, that's how it began. I got to a point where my disease was like, this is it, you're done. And then like, boom, I was saved. And I say saved because, man, I believe wholeheartedly that alcohol and drugs saved my life for a long time. I was able to really find a sense of relief in using and drinking. And I don't regret a second of it, all the way to the very last minute. I really did, for a long time. It really worked for me until it stopped working. But, I moved out of my parents' house at 15. I was sort of a complete recluse, out of control. No one could stop me. I was a problem. I was a problem for a lot of people, although I was able to charm my way into into situations. I've always had this sort of like people skill ability to manipulate and get what I want. And so I was successful on the street. You know what I mean? I was selling drugs successfully. I was living in all sorts of really nice places at a very young age that I didn't pay any money to live in. I was just like able to hustle my way through life. And I was working in nightclubs at, 16 years old. And then and restaurants. I started working in restaurants when I was 12, 13. Anyway, it got pretty bad. In the beginning, it was like party drugs. And then I started drinking more heavily at like 17. And then when I started drinking, cocaine became part of my story in a real way. And then for the next 6 years, it was pretty much a marriage of darkness and alcohol and cocaine. That marriage is it's a match made in heaven for a little while, and then it very quickly falls to hell, and you can sit down there for a long time, and I did, and so all sorts of things happened. I got robbed at gunpoint, pistol whipped, thrown into a bathtub, duct tape, tied up. I didn't think I had a problem. I blamed my roommate for that. Crash cars, wrecked a motorcycle, just burned bridges pretty much everywhere I go. I was always the potential case. Oh, that kid's got so much potential. I moved to LA, came back to New York. My father died, gave me the grandest excuse to use. And then I found I didn't find opioids until the very end of my drinking career. I mean, I would like take a Xanax here and there, but like really it was more about drinking and getting high as opposed to getting low. And then at the end, I was introduced to some of the opioids, and that's what took me out quick. I was working at Frank restaurant in the East Village. I loved my job. It was like it was all I had, my job, and because of the nature of that restaurant, I was able to really get away with murder. I was able to drink and party and do drugs the way I wanted to. I lived upstairs, so like I was a scumbag with women. I didn't think of myself as a morning drinker, but I would like get home at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning from partying, go to bed, wake up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, roll out of bed into work, and like start drinking right away. And so, as far as I'm concerned now, that's as much of a morning drinker as you can get. And I lived this dark life. I remember just tiptoeing around my apartment when nobody was home, thinking that everybody was watching me. I remember. My piss and brown, I hadn't pissed clear in God knows how long. I mean, I hadn't taken a solid shit in years. My body was dying, I was bloated. I just felt disgusting. And I wanted to die, and it wasn't working for me and it hadn't been for a long time. And, I slept through work one day, and I had done that before, but I slept through work, and my boss, who loves to party himself, took me aside and said, "Mikey, I love you, man. You're a kid. I love you. You're good at your job, but I can't watch you kill yourself. You're gonna die. Like everybody's watching you slowly dig this ditch that you're just comfortably lying in, and I'm gonna fire you. You slept through work, and I never, I mean, Frank, Tony, like very few people get fired from that restaurant. People, you know what I mean? You got to really fuck up." And Frank was like, "If this kills me to do it, but you're fired." And I begged him for my job. And he said, "If you want your job, I'm not going to let you bartend. You're going to have to show up here at 8 o'clock in the morning and clean the fucking restaurant with the porters. And so I agreed to that. And he said, and you're also going to have to get sober because I'm not going to let you drink and do drugs the way you're doing it at the restaurant anymore. I just am not going to let it happen on my watch. And so, I dabbled with sobriety a few times in the past. When I was 16 years old and my mother and I was not living at home, I made a deal with my mom and I told her that, I'll go to outpatient rehab. And so she agreed to help me pay for that. And I went to Freedom Institute and, I bullshitted my way through that whole entire program. And then when I was 17, I walked into my first AA meeting called Never Had a Legal Drink. And I was just like, this isn't for me. And then I guess, I tried to get sober once before, right before I got, probably 3 or 4 months before I got sober for real. And I just couldn't keep it together. I was just too fucked up. Anyway, for whatever reason, this time it stuck. And I remember very clearly walking into a meeting, and crying my fucking eyes out and knowing that I had completely just come to I'd come to a place of complete desperation and misery, and I just didn't want to do it anymore or die. And I gave in and I surrendered, and I met a couple of guys that I looked up to, and they basically, I towards the end of my career, my drinking career, there was a lot of anger that was coming out in my blackouts, and I was getting into an enormous amount of fistfights. I was fighting constantly, and I'm not an angry, violent person, I'm just not. I'm a pretty happy guy, but like when I was out there drinking and using drugs, this animal would show up, and I would just punch people in the face out of nowhere, and literally get into like full blown brawls, scuffs at bars, and these two guys knew that I had this anger situation that I was dealing with, and so they dragged me to a Muay Thai gym within the first week of getting sober, and they put me in this gym, and they said, here's the deal. You're 23 years old. You have an enormous amount of opportunity to be something special and unique. We're going to teach you something that has to do with discipline and honor and humility, and we're going to put you in a ring where you're really going to get your fucking ass kicked. And they said, we're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to go to an AA meeting, you're going to have some food, you're going to come to the gym, you're going to train fucking as hard as you can, you're going to have some lunch, you're going to go to sleep, and you're going to go to work. And that was my life. And they told me, all you're going to eat is chicken and broccoli, because I had no idea how to eat. I really didn't. I don't even remember what I ate when I was out there. I really don't. It was like, I guess I ate whatever came my way. But that's what I did. And very, very quickly I got spiritual. I understood what humility was. I got into some of the greatest shape of my life very quickly. I became infatuated with fitness and nutrition. And here I am, 16 years, almost, my anniversary, sober anniversary date is in a few weeks. I'll be 16 years sober.
Unbelievable.
I've got a life way beyond my wildest dreams.
Beautiful. It's you said so many things, right, that resonate with me. And, people often tell me, well, when you decided to stop drinking, why didn't you just that's it, stop drinking? And the thing is, for an addict, you have this default character where the minute that you approach or are faced with pain, your default character is to numb that pain through drugs and alcohol, right? And so when you're saying, hey, that first time that I made an attempt, well, very few people get it right that first time. And listen, God bless those guys. I don't know how that happens. I had to kind of walk it a little bit, stumble, pick myself up, and do it as well. I think that when you look at your life and some of the things that I see now from you and knowing you at a deep level, this word of infatuation with fitness and nutrition, for me, I'm not afraid to use the word obsessed, right? This is a healthy obsession where you are obsessed. To me means you're laser focused on this new category, this new pillar in your life. And guess what? You never would have thought back in the day that was literally what was going to be important to you today. It rings true. You
It was
see,
a dream. It was a dream of mine. It was a dream. You know what else I've also wanted to make sure I said here with you, because this is a podcast of better living. The word want is a fucking cop-out, no matter how you use it. I want to do something. I don't want to do something. If you remove want from your vocabulary, so I am going to do something, I am not going to do something, is much more of a definitive, realistic lifestyle, right? Like the want lifestyle is a fucking cop-out. Whoever is looking to be their best, and not perfect, but to be their best on a daily basis, progressively moving forward, remove the word want from your vocabulary, because it does not get you anywhere. Wanting is not for the winners. That's the truth.
Amen.
I was thinking about that in the shower before I was gonna jump on here with you, because I don't say want much, and I think it's important.
It's funny, like when you first come into the rooms of AA, the fellowship, and just you're hanging around the right the right guys, and it's sometimes like this life is literally just doing what you're told, especially initially, right? And the guys that I work with today, I tell them, don't tell me, to your point, just to kind of piggyback on that last comment, I'm going to do, or I want to do. Come to me when you say, I've done this. When you've done it, share it. Because I've been on that side where, I live in this fantasy world where I know I can do it, but the act of doing is completely different. There's huge growth that comes with doing, right? And so, I couldn't agree with you more. Mike, talk to me a little bit about this new podcast that you're doing. I love it. You're in season 2, right? The way I've interpreted it is more, it's like a leadership, entrepreneurship podcast where you're highlighting some folks. Talk to me a little bit about that, how it came up, how the genesis of the brand and what you're looking to do with Born or Made.
Yeah, well, for me, Born or Made is, I believe that I believe everybody is born with some sort of inherent talent. The journey in life is to find out what that talent is, ideally as quickly as possible, and throw all your eggs in that basket. That is what I believe. I once you find it, things tend to come easier. It's not easy to find, right? I've been lucky in my career path that I was able to find out early on that people are my talent. I'm able to really connect with human beings and get them to believe something that I believe in. And it doesn't work if I don't believe in it. But if I do believe in it, it's been proven through my businesses that I'm able to get people to believe too. And so I think it's beautiful to be able to sort of put a highlight on that I believe that, people that are leaders of industry were born with an ability to do what they do best. And it's typically what they excel at. And that doesn't mean that you're a millionaire or a billionaire. That means that you're genuinely happy in your life doing what you do. What that is that you're doing is something I'm interested in talking about. So it's really the nature nurture discussion, right? Do you believe you were born with the ability to get to where you are out today, or do you think you were made over time? I think it's a really interesting topic. I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer necessarily, even though I believe people are born with something unique, everyone. So it's not like a discouragement podcast that says, hey, like if you're not born with this isn't going to work for you. However, I do believe that if you are trying really, really hard to do something and it's not working out, maybe listening to my podcast could convince you that it's time to pull the plug and continue searching for what it is that you're really talented at. And so I've had the pleasure of meeting with a bunch of really awesome people to tell me their stories, because I feel like human beings in general love to listen to stories. We've since beginning of time, stories have been sort of the um, the framework for human life, right? We all have a story, and then there are certain people that can tell their stories really well, and so I like to get a hold of the people that can tell their stories really well and that are engaging, and so that's what I've been doing with Born or Made. It's been really cool. I'm I don't know, 21 episodes in, and I've got a bunch in the hopper, and it's been a journey, and a fun journey at that.
It's funny, like whenever you and I either were shooting each other a text or a message through IG, and we talk about like, it's like we're, as much as the categories are similar yet different, like we're in the people business, right? I come from the corporate world where I literally let go of the corporate world probably 7 weeks ago, right? And I often used to tell my team and even the individuals that I work with now is like, yeah, I'm driving demand for the portfolio, but my business is people, right? And when you look at, just currency and just what was important to me in the corporate world versus what's important to me now, like the best currency for me in 2020 is mental health. It has nothing to do with comp. Don't get me wrong. I have bills to pay, but the ripple effect that I see by helping somebody kind of shed their old self, let go of that bag of rocks. I'm sure you've carried that bag for a long time. It gets heavy after 20 years, right? Let it go. That growth and seeing how it's not just helping that one person, but potentially you're helping save a marriage, or you're helping that person have a better relationship with their son. That's the profoundness of what we're doing, you and I, in being in this people business. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think being able to help somebody is probably one of the most gratifying experiences that we can have as humans, right? Being able to genuinely sit down and listen to somebody and then give honest feedback and then potentially, help them progress. I think that's one of the greatest gifts that actually keeps on giving, right? Like if you enjoy it and it's something that you're good at, you keep being of service, and all the things that you could possibly want come.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit. Listen, I've had a chance to go through your website, michaelchernow.com. And I've had a chance to, read and skim through some of those workout plans that you've offered for free. I think it's important to do that, especially in this environment, this negative environment where people have lost a sense of self. Talk to me a little bit about your preparation for your upcoming show. I talk about all the restaurateur things, all the brand building, just personal brands within the health and fitness space. But you're a bodybuilder too. Like what else? Talk to me a little bit about that. So great, man.
Like you said earlier, I think, I just finished listening to this book called Relentless, and it was written by this guy Tim Grover, who was the coach for the personal training and mental coach for Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, a number of super high performers in life. And he walks through this book and it talks about this sort of relentless mentality. And I identify with it. I identify with having a relentless mentality. I've gotten in the description, sometimes he says things that I don't necessarily identify with as much as I used to, because I used to, specifically when I was drinking and using, I was relentless about drinking and using. Relentless. It didn't matter who you were and what you were doing for me. I could give a flying fuck about you as long as I was getting what I needed to get with my drugs and alcohol. I've applied that relentless sort of mentality to positivity. So I am an obsessive, extreme person. Anything I do, I take it to the next level. And I can't really explain why that is, but that is my DNA. That is my nature. And so, I start running, I'm running marathons. I start, opening business, I open up 15. I start, lifting weights, I'm in a bodybuilding competition. anything I do pretty much, I take it as far as I can take it until I get to a point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to move on to the next thing to fucking take on. And so, I like, again, like fitness and nutrition are the cornerstones of my life today. I put it before everything and anything. It's my number one priority. And I say that genuinely. I put it before my family. I put it before my friends. I put it before my business. And I also put it before everything literally in the day. So I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get into the gym. So I'm not sacrificing time with my family and my business. But without fitness and nutrition, without feeling well inside, and the way I plant these accomplishments and these little wins throughout my day is through, fitness, nutrition, spirituality, things like that. Without that stuff, I don't feel well inside. And I know for me, if I don't feel well inside, there is absolutely no shot that I can be advantageous to anyone else in my life. I cannot be a great father if I fucking hate myself. And I have a disease that tells me to hate myself. I wake up with it every single day. It's not going anywhere. And I know that. And so I have to take action from the second I open my eyes. And that action tends to look like I wake up in the morning. Now I have a puppy, so I have to move quick. But I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I put water on my face, I immediately drop down on my hands and knees, I say my morning prayers, I take out the dog, I bring the dog back, I drink a pre-workout, and I'm in the gym. After that, I do a little breathing exercise, and then I write a gratitude list, and then I get going on my day. And like those things, that routine, it allows me to be a better father, husband, brother, son, business owner, partner, employer, all those things.
Contributing member of society. Yeah.
When I put my priority first, which is really self-love and wellness.
Awesome. When is the show?
Bodybuilding show is on October 11th. Who knows if it's going to happen? I'm prepping for it. The last show that I was supposed to do was May 30th. We prepped all the way till about 3 weeks before. And then my coach was like, all right, let's reverse out of this and try to find something for the fall. And so October 11th in Brooklyn, New York. Hopefully I'll bring my best package.
Nice, man. Talk to me a little bit about, the cheat meal that Mikey Chernow likes to have. Listen, I'm on public record in sharing my affinity towards donuts. What's your...
I know you're a donut man.
What's your guilty pleasure, my man? Something that you can't make in that green egg that I see you cooking in all the time.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty strict about my regimen specifically now because I'm working on this thing, this bodybuilding show, so it's hard for me to veer way off.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, like, closing my eyes, swinging for the bleachers, all-time favorite go-to cheat meal would probably be burger at the Spotted Pig with shoestring fries, and a big, huge, monstrous bowl of full-blown ice cream. Just, those two back to back.
Dude, you should see your face when you're describing it. You're about to melt yourself, man.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time, so that's why I'm like, but that said, like, I will tell you this. I eat, I like you said, like, I barbecue every single weekend. I make it work with my macros, but I barbecue every weekend, man. I love, like, slow cooking a pork butt or a pork shoulder or a brisket, big rib roast. I mean, I eat well, man. I never, even though I'm lean as hell, like, I never sacrifice flavor, ever.
Nice.
Every single meal I eat tastes good. And I wanted to say that out there out loud too. Like, when people think that they've got to jump, or when people, are looking to get into the path of wellness, don't think of it as like this bland, dry, fucking eating like a rabbit kind of thing. Like, there's so many ways to skin the cat, and you can be in the best shape of your life and also eating incredibly well and enjoy every single meal. It's not about depriving yourself of things, because I feel like once, when you deprive, you end up binging and never sustaining something long term. So I eat really well, man. But, if I'm swinging, I'm going big fat, 10, 12 ounce burger, fries, fucking ice cream.
Nothing, nothing better than a bowl of balls, of meatballs. And listen, I've been known to have 2 or 3 of the ice cream sandwiches that your wife brought to the table at the meatball shop. Dude, I can crush that, And a lot of people say, well, where did the sweet tooth come from? Listen, I think it's partly due to the fact that I don't eat, a lot of, sugar. I used to consume a lot of sugar and all the alcohol that I used to drink. But for me, like you, I'm very strict on my diet. My crutch, and it's a healthy crutch. I've accepted this ice cream and donut crutch. It's not happening every day, but I'm fully accepting of the power that it gives me. So,
hey man,
so
and as you should, my brother. You look great,
yeah, thank you.
and you always have.
Thank you, brother. Let's pivot a little bit about to some of the things that you're working on. As a business, I've heard bits and pieces about Well or any of the restaurants. I want to have this as an open forum. Feel free to kind of talk to me and introduce the listeners to whatever it is that you're working on now. I know that we've shared some back and forth through text on like meal plan or like fitness plans and stuff like that. What's Mikey up to now?
Yeah, so my number one priority right now, obviously we've all had to shift and pivot and move and acclimate to this new environment of COVID, and understanding what the future looks like is really difficult. I'm in the restaurant business in New York City. I've been lucky enough to have made some decisions along my journey in business to sell equity, at the right time. And so I sold equity at the meatball shop 5-6 years ago. I sold the majority of my equity at Seymour's in November of 2019. So I got very lucky timing wise there. And I was building a new concept that was going to open up in the city called Creatures of Habit. But then COVID hit. And so that whole entire 10-month long development process and, having investors and all that shit just fell to the wayside. What do? We pivot. All good, man. I got a lot of ideas up my sleeve, and something like that is not going to stop me from continuing to progress. So I made a decision with my family to pack up our shit, rent out our place in Brooklyn, and we have a house about 2 hours north of the city. We moved up here, and I said, I'm going to settle in up here, take a year, and figure out what I'm going to do. And then I very quickly developed a concept for a restaurant in upstate New York. And so I'm going to open up a restaurant up here in the spring, summer of 2021. But I'm also, I'm focusing on my podcast in the interim. And I've got a few smaller projects that I'm a part of, as well as, really trying to, I think my why is people, like I said, and helping other people. And so I think ultimately what my career is going to sort of funnel into is a guy that just loves to help other people, and it's going to be in a number of different arenas, right? It'll be through food and hospitality and service and making memories for people. It'll be through fitness and nutrition, because that's something that I truly love and believe can save lives and change the world. It'll be through motivation, through just talking to others. And so I'm looking to build this platform, that has a number of different pillars to it that, I enjoy doing. I don't buy the do one thing and do it really, really well. I buy into the have a few things going on all the time, so that if something doesn't work, it's not over. right? Like if I didn't have a personal brand to fall back on in this time of COVID, if I didn't focus on developing my personal brand, when the restaurants in the city, who knows what's going to happen, right? Like some of the biggest restaurant companies are done, over, closed for good, bankrupt. You'll never see them again. And so knowing that like I've had a couple of other things that I've been working on, gives me this opportunity to feel like, like it's like maybe that one area of my life is closed, or that one chapter is sort of like pushed on, on pause. I could focus on these other things. And so that's sort of what it is, the brand of Michael Chernow, that I'll be able to feel freedom in expanding in the world of helping others.
It's funny you talk about, it's a key word that whenever I hear it, like my ears perk up, and you just shared it, freedom, right? And for me, freedom came in recovery, right? I could put up a big game, telling everybody that I'm fine, right? I'm doing good. But the true feeling and essence of freedom comes in recovery. Some of the, something that we share together is when you look at the carnage of recovery, the carnage of addiction, and the fact that we've been able to literally break that chain where now your kids and your wife doesn't have to live through that. And for me, my son doesn't have to live through that. That to me that just feeds my gratitude, right? And life gets messy sometimes. Do you ever think about your recovery and where you come from? Because I think that right now, when you look at people, people often think of like character flaws versus character strengths. And it's funny how all it takes is like a different lens. Do you ever look back for a quick second and say, man, I've come a long way, man? What's your approach there?
Well, I think so. I think I've always struggled with the idea of believing the hype. Like when somebody tells me, "Oh, Mikey, it's so awesome to see what you've done. You've done this, you've done that." I know what I've done, and I think it's also what makes me a good leader, is that I've learned to appreciate it, but not make it anything more than a compliment. Not let it get to my head. Similarly, in the world of negativity, where I struggle with it more than the positive stuff, but I've gotten much better at not allowing the sort of negative people around me to penetrate my ability to feel okay. I'm blessed that I was able to get sober so young, right? I've been with my wife 15 years. She's never seen me have a drink. Both of my boys, knock on wood, they've never seen me have a drink, and God willing, a day at a time, it's not something they'll ever have to worry about, because I'm just not a good guy when I'm out there. And so, everything I do today, I'm pretty confident is I'm a positive example for my boys in everything I do, and I do sacrifice. There's no doubt. Like I sacrifice time with them, but since we've been up here, I have this home gym, and now my kids, about an hour into my workout, they'll come into the gym with me, and they're just watching me train, and like, hey, Daddy, can I do a pull up? Or, and I'm so grateful for that. Like, there's nothing better than having for two little boys with a dad that loves them very much. I think I'm probably an idol for them. And I'm an example of like what it means to be a great dad. And that means the world to me. I feel like I've broken the chain, and it's only because I'm sober. There is no other way. There is no other, nothing else. Like I don't have anything anything in my life today. Zero. Outside of some shitty tattoos that I got before I got sober. I don't have anything in my life today without sobriety, without being sober. So, you know, I do believe that if I accomplish nothing else in the world of business, you know, I could say that I've put some shit on the map, and I have love for myself, and I have love for others. I'm able to genuinely love other people, even though, you know, I still struggle with intimacy. It's a work in progress, but I know that I love my wife. I know that I love my sons. I know that I love, you know, a small crew of friends. You know,
it's good, man.
What
fits you well, man. So before I ask you this last question, sweet lid, bro. Talk to me a little bit about that lid, bro. I like it, man.
Dude.
Red looks good on you, brother.
Dude, when you sent me this hat, I was like, man, the guy knows my fucking color.
Dude, you know,
Red always is like
it's funny because you know, as I've trying to implement my own guerrilla marketing for the brand and just attaching, you know, my story to the brand. And for the podcast, for the most part, I think every one of the podcasts that I've recorded to date, I wear the red cap. It's almost like I approach it like the same way that Tiger Woods approaches last day, man. You know, it's like, it's this power color, really. It's like, it's this feel good, and not power like I have power over somebody. It's just like I'm fueling the best version of myself to talk about growth and development. So I figured it was fitting for me. And so I said, how can I get my brother the same color? I only got 3 red caps because I didn't want to dilute the color, my man, but you got one of them.
Well, dude, you know, red is the color of energy, right? Like the sun, we see it, it looks kind of yellow, but the truth is that it's red, and the sun is where all the energy on the planet comes from. And so I love the color red, and you know, I like to sort of weave it into my life because blues and greens are really nice and relaxing. But red, man, red is like rah.
You're showing your soft side with the blue and green comment. I like it. Mike, last question. Talk to me. Obviously, you're well versed in the world of like media, podcasting. What are some of the hottest trends? You know, I love the fact that podcasting right now, we're like barely scratching the surface of what podcasting will be in 5 years. Literally.
Probably.
Talk to me about some of the hottest trends that you've been living in the world for a little bit. You know, obviously you've had your own show, Food Porn. It's at FYI channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now you're into podcasting. Talk to me a little bit about what you've studied and what you see, how you see it evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, you know, no one ever thought that radio was going to come back into the picture, right? Here's what I believe. I believe that as we evolve, multitasking is something that people are actually interested in doing, right? Being able to consume content while you're doing something else. And that's really what radio was, and that's why it was such a massive hit. For, you know, ever and ever, because you were able to drive and listen to something. You're able to put on your headphones and listen to something. And so now being able to absorb content, real tangible content, that is actually valuable, while you're doing other things is really what people are interested in. And I think more people probably listen to podcasts today when they're working out or driving to work than they do music. I think people really are diving into this world of consumption of chewable content. And I don't think it's ever going to take the place of music, obviously, because music is its own thing. But I do believe that more and more people are listening to podcasts. And, you know, I think it's only like 2% of the population right now that are actually are doing it. But I think it's just the sky's the limit in what it can be. And like you said, we're just at the sort of precipice of it, and it's going to get better and better and better. And in terms of hot topics, I mean, I think obviously mental health is something that is very, very is a focus of a lot of the podcast today. Like trying to talk to successful people or people leaders of industry to try to lift up rocks in their brain and give us tips and tricks on ways to be better. I also think that fitness and nutrition is something that really is a big focus in general, right? One thing that I was saying, and I actually said it on Good Morning America yesterday, I hope it made an impact, but we talk a lot about nutrition in the world of today in regards to the obesity epidemic. The United States, something like 40% of the United States is obese, like 4 out of 10 fucking people. It's insane. We talk a lot about the food system, which is obviously totally in the weeds, but we don't talk enough about the idea that we have become sedentary beings. We stopped moving about 50 years ago. We were designed to move. We were designed to use our bodies. For 1,000,000+ years, we've been up on our feet most of the day, sleeping, somewhere between 7 and 9 hours, and then on our feet, moving our bodies. And we've stopped doing that because of technology and evolution in the world of work. Mm-hmm. And that, I believe, is something that we need to start focusing on more. Just moving, just getting off your fucking ass and moving. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's something that we're going to be talking a lot more about, hopefully. Yeah, man.
Awesome,
that's
brother.
what I think.
Mike, I can't thank you enough, my man. I've,
Can I just finish with one thing that I think is really important? That God is in our sort of community. God is not a thing. God is your thing, right? It's not a very specific picture. It's whatever you want it to be. And what I've come to believe is that God and the solution is in the pause. The pause is what sobriety is all about, is what giving yourself the opportunity to stop, slow down, take a breath, let whatever is fucking scaring you pass, pause, and then go on. And when you live a life of reaction and you live a life of with no pause, the solution is never going to be an opportunity for you. So I think it's very important to say that on a podcast like this, because the solution for me is in the pause. It's when shit's going down, I literally close my eyes, envision opening up a window, allowing a cool breeze to come in, hit my body, experience that, and then make a decision on what I want to do, as opposed to something bad's happening. React. And so...
Yeah, no, one of the, listen, I've learned a lot of things in recovery, but one of the things that's rings true in almost my everyday life is this restraint from pen and tongue. People can sometimes just get on my nerves, and I was the master. Like, I had a PhD in unleashing on you on text. Mm-hmm. and to that point, pause. You do that, over and over and over and over again. It becomes a habit where you're not reacting to those things. Couldn't think of a better way to end this, right? But just a huge, sincere gratitude for you and your time. One of the most finite resources we have is time, and you've given me an hour of your time. And that, to me, I'll never forget this interaction that we're having now. And I think it'll be the first of many as I build my platform, and you're, well on your way of building yours. And I sometimes tug on your shirt and say, "Hey, Mike, what do you think about this?" That'll continue happening, just FYI. But just a deep sense of gratitude for who you are, what you represent, and just your brotherhood and alignment to me. I'm indebted to you, my man.
Dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing me on. I am more than grateful and honored to be a part of your path and your journey. And you can always rely on me as a resource and friend and brother.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.